Hey folks, let's talk about magical thinking and the Constitution. So, J.D. Vance, yeah, he actually is the vice president. I forgot to. He posted this, that judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. And predictably, liberals are scrambling to remind him about separation of powers, checks and balances. Some are even asking if he's read the Constitution, as if that's the problem. And even Yale Law School is the problem. Look, I get it. Watching democracy get steamrolled makes people desperate. But the Constitution isn't a self-correcting document. It is not a book of spells. It doesn't enforce itself. It's not magical. It's a legal framework, and one that has never worked unless people forced it to. But the framers weren't wizards. The Constitution isn't a spell book. The 1787 Convention wasn't a patriotic Hogwarts. Since World War II, a lot of Americans, but especially white liberals, have come to believe that the founders designed a system so perfect that it automatically prevents tyranny. They think that if you just invoke checks and balances enough times, the Constitution will rise from its glass case at the National Archives and smite Donald Trump on sight. But otherwise, history says different. The Constitution didn't stop slavery, it entrenched it. It didn't prevent the Civil War, it ensured it. It didn't stop Jim Crow, and it sure as hell didn't stop Andrew Jackson, the hero of this lot, from literally ignoring a Supreme Court ruling and committing mass genocide anyway. Don't believe me? Ask John Marshall's ghost. That was in 1832, by the way. That's how long American presidents have been testing whether the Constitution is just a piece of paper. And look, it's not just the people you expect, right? It's not the bad guys like Jackson. Lincoln, the great emancipator, straight up suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War, meaning the government could imprison people without trial, an actual violation explicitly of the Constitution. And the courts didn't stop him. The Supreme Court specifically ruled that only Congress had the power to suspend habeas corpus. What did Lincoln do? Ignored them. And did it anyway. And then Congress later on retroactively said, oh, yeah, we were with him all the whole time. And then there's FDR. Listen, he's a hero of mine too, but he locked up over 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II, not because they had done anything wrong, but because they might, hypothetically, pose a national security risk. No evidence, no trials, just mass incarceration of American citizens on site. No evidence required. And now, this president, right now, is itching to expand emergency powers to push the limits of executive authorities in ways we haven't seen yet, and it's only February. If history's any guide, that's not a what if, that's a when. And before anyone makes this just about the far right, liberals, you do this. You act like if you just remind people about separation of powers enough times, democracy will fix itself. That if we just get the right court ruling or merely introduce articles of impeachment, that the system will snap back into place. But the system has never worked that way. The system has never held firm on its own. People had to fight for every expansion of democracy. And I mean fight, not tweet at fascists about what's in the Federalist Papers. Writers who agree with them anyway, probably. Every democratic gain in this country happened in spite of the system that the founders created, not because of it. The Constitution didn't give women the right to vote. It didn't free enslaved people. It didn't protect black citizens from being lynched. Those things happened because people forced the system to work, usually over the violent resistance of the same institutions people now think will save us. Progress in America has almost always come with a body count. So what now? At the end of the day, Vance knows what he's doing. He's not confused about the Constitution. He just doesn't care. They're testing whether anyone's going to stop them. And if your only response is, sir, checks and balances, you've already lost. And look, I know it's comforting to believe that the system will just work if everyone follows the rules, but that's the problem. Bad actors don't follow the rules. Andrew Jackson didn't. Lincoln didn't. FDR didn't. Nixon didn't. Trump didn't. Now Vance is telling you explicitly what they're not going to do. Believe him. So stop treating the Constitution like it has inherent power, like it is a book of spells. If you want to stop authoritarianism, you're going to have to do more than quote the founders at it. Because they weren't on your side in the first place. And I guarantee you that the people trying to break the system already know exactly how far they can push it before you realize the magic words don't work. So this isn't about whether democracy survives. It's about how hard people are willing to fight for it. And to stop going ahead and letting the founders go ahead and get off the hook about this stuff. They had their time. They had their chance. This is our time. This is our chance.